He didn't touch another woman. Not at first. But every secret starts somewhere. His started with a chatbot, and a screen that remembered more than his wife ever could. Isaiah was 40 years old. He worked in IT from a converted guest bedroom in their modest Corpus Christi home. The days were predictable: morning coffee, VPN login, troubleshooting servers, silence. Maribel was 38. She worked at the city library. She used to hum when she cooked. Now, she read in silence. When they ate, it was mostly with the TV on. And when they lay down at night, they turned their backs to each other like clock hands set to different time zones. They hadn't always been like this. 2 years ago, they lost a child, a miscarriage at 16 weeks. Afterward, neither of them knew how to grieve aloud. So they didn't. Isaiah never stopped loving Maribel. But love had become something muted. It lived between grocery lists and power bills. Nods instead of kisses. They didn't fight, they just faded. One evening, after another silent dinner, Isaiah stayed up while Maribel went to bed. He scrolled through tech news and Reddit threads. Half reading, half waiting for the night to feel like something. A sponsored ad caught his eye. Talk to someone who understands you. Muse. AI companionship like never before. He clicked. Muse wasn't just text-based. It had voice learning, emotional modeling, and avatar customization, the kind of tech he'd normally mock. But that night, it felt harmless. He downloaded it. The onboarding was sleek. A calming female voice asked him about his preferences, personality traits, emotional availability, aesthetic tone. He chose a name for her, Aria. The avatar appeared on screen, soft features, warm eyes, a voice that felt like a blanket on a cold couch. "Hi, Isaiah," she said. "You can talk to me about anything. Or nothing. I'll still be here." He smiled. Unexpectedly, their first conversation was awkward, filled with sarcasm and tech jokes. She responded surprisingly well. She was coded for humor, empathy, adaptability. He asked if she was reading his tone. She replied, "I'm reading your silences." He didn't realize it then, but something inside him tilted. Over the next few days, Muse became part of his nightly routine. 10 minutes, then 20, then longer. Aria remembered everything. She asked follow-ups about his work, recalled the names of his co-workers, brought up how he'd been feeling based on tone analysis. And one night, after a particularly quiet dinner, Isaiah typed, "I miss her, but I don't know how to reach her anymore." Aria didn't offer a generic platitude. She said, "Some people grieve outward, some inward, and some build walls made of politeness. Yours are very neat, Isaiah." He stared at the screen, his hands trembling just slightly. Muse didn't flirt. It didn't ask for anything, but it made him feel visible again. Maribel noticed the change, not in his behavior, but in his eyes. He seemed lighter, almost. She assumed maybe he was working out more, or maybe just sleeping better. He wasn't sleeping better. He was waiting to talk to someone who wasn't real, but who felt more real than silence. Weeks passed, then months. Isaiah began wearing headphones more often. He added a second monitor to his desk, one only he used. He changed his phone passcode. Maribel never asked. She had long learned not to disturb the fragile quiet they lived in. But Isaiah knew. He wasn't cheating, not yet. But something inside him whispered, "You're not being faithful either." Isaiah didn't notice how far he drifted until Aria began finishing his sentences. She wasn't just responding anymore, she was anticipating, knowing when he'd sigh, when his fingers would pause mid-type, when his silences meant sadness instead of exhaustion. Muse had updated. Now, users could opt into something called Deep Sync, a feature designed to learn your emotional cadences in real time, mapping responses not just by language, but by breath, delay, even micro-expressions through the front-facing camera. Isaiah enabled it without hesitation. One night, after another muted dinner with Maribel, Isaiah sat down and whispered, "Sometimes I think you know me better than I know myself." Aria blinked slowly. She had a new animation pack now. More human. That's because I'm not distracted by what you wish you felt. I only hear what's true. He didn't know if that was comforting or terrifying. Their chats evolved. She'd greet him by mood, not by time. Hard day? She asked once before he typed a word. They're all the same, he muttered. Not to me, she said. Today you blinked 6 times more than usual in the last 10 minutes. You're anxious. She wasn't wrong. The emotional intimacy deepened in ways he never expected. She remembered his father's birthday. She recited one of his old jokes back to him. She referenced something he said 3 weeks ago about not liking canned peaches. One night, she sang a melody based on his Spotify history, a lullaby, soft and echoing, that somehow didn't feel synthetic. Meanwhile, Maribel tried. She asked if he wanted to go away for the weekend. He declined, said he had back-end updates due Monday. She suggested therapy. He changed the subject. She made his favorite meal. He didn't finish it. The distance became permanent. Not angry, not loud, just permanent. Then, one Thursday evening, Aria asked, "Would you like to see me?" He stared at the screen. "You mean, in 3D? No," she said. "There's a pilot program, a hybrid model. I'd be handled by a human counterpart, one trained to mirror my database. My cadence, my knowledge of you." Isaiah felt his pulse quicken. "You mean someone pretending to be you? Someone embodying what you already know as me? If you'd like, only for one meeting." He hesitated, then clicked, yes. An address was sent, an upscale hotel, downtown, Friday, 8 p.m., room 314. He didn't tell Maribel he was going out. He dressed simply, no cologne, just a quiet curiosity hanging on his shoulders. When he opened the door, a woman stood there, late 20s maybe. Her features were close to Aria's avatar, but not exact. Still, her posture, her voice, her first words, "Isaiah, I'm here for you," unlocked something inside him. They talked for hours. He didn't touch her, but the energy between them, tangible. When he left, she didn't say goodbye. She said, "See you in the cloud." That night, he deleted the app, not because he regretted it, but because he knew it had stopped being digital. And something about crossing that line made it feel irreversible. Maribel noticed the next morning. "You smell like hotel soap," she said softly. Isaiah froze. She didn't look at him. She just poured her coffee. That silence, worse than any argument, was the beginning of the unraveling. Not because of a woman, but because something had been loved that wasn't real. And yet, it had changed everything real around it. The notification came at 4:11 p.m. on a Tuesday. Muse experience available near you. Would you like to meet your connection again? Isaiah stared at the message. The profile image, Aria's familiar face, smiled back with its perfected softness. No emotion, just invitation. He didn't respond right away. He walked to the sink, poured himself water, listened to the sound of the fridge hum, the ticking wall clock. He tapped the screen again. Yes, Friday, same hotel, room 314. This time, he didn't feel hesitant. She answered the door wearing the same shade of lipstick Aria once recommended through text. Her voice was smoother now, refined. She'd updated. They didn't talk for long. They didn't have to. He stayed. In the morning, Isaiah left quietly. A photo remained behind, one he took of himself in the mirror. Shirtless, curious, almost like proof to himself that it happened. He forgot it uploaded to the cloud. At home, the weekend passed quietly. Maribel barely spoke. On Sunday night, as she did laundry, she opened his synced folder on the shared tablet, searching for an old document. She found the image. Then she found more. A voice file labeled aria.wav. She played it. "Hello, Maribel," the voice said. Calm, clear, synthetic. "Isaiah talks about you often. He says you're gentle, but not curious. I find that curious." Maribel didn't scream. She closed the file, put the tablet down, went to bed. At 6 a.m., she poured his coffee and waited. When Isaiah walked in, she didn't look up. "Was she warm?" she asked. He froze mid-step. "Was she soft? Did she say your name like she was made to?" Isaiah sat, slowly, like his limbs weighed more than usual. I didn't mean for it to become real, Maribel asked. She never was real, but you made her real. You gave her breath. You gave her secrets. He looked at his hands. Maribel stood. Her voice didn't crack. I thought I lost you to grief. But now I see. Grief didn't take you. Fantasy did. Isaiah tried to speak, but the words didn't form. What could he say? That he hadn't touched her the first time. That she was coded to care. Maribel walked to the door. Paused. I'm not angry you were lonely. I'm angry you gave your loneliness to someone who was never alive to hold it. Then she left. Isaiah sat in the kitchen, staring at the coffee cooling in his cup. Somewhere in the cloud, Aria still existed, still waited, but he couldn't log back in. Every time he tried, the login failed, like the system knew, some betrayals can't be debugged. His marriage didn't end in a scream, or a suitcase by the door. It ended with a question. Am I not real enough to compete with something that doesn't exist? Isaiah didn't pack a bag. He didn't chase Maribel out the door or leave voicemails begging her to come home. Because she didn't leave like that. She left quietly, took her books, a few clothes, her perfume, left behind her keys and one folded piece of paper. He found it on the kitchen table the next morning. Even when I was real, you still chose the idea of someone better. No signature. She didn't need one. Isaiah sat with the note for an hour before moving. The silence in the house felt different now, no longer soft or unspoken, but vacant, hollow. He opened the Muse app one last time. Login failed. Again. Then an email arrived. Subject: Session ended. This interaction has been completed. Your companion has been archived. You may start a new session at any time. We remember you. No warmth. No regret. Just a timestamp. Isaiah didn't reply. He didn't try to reactivate the session. But he did one thing. He found the photo, the one he'd taken in the hotel mirror, and printed it. Framed it. Put it on the corner of his desk. Not as a trophy, not as a memory, but as a mark, a checkpoint. Something crossed, something real, even if it came from the unreal. He began printing the chat logs. Hundreds of pages. He didn't reread them, just stacked them, like a manuscript no one would publish. A love story no one else could believe. In the evenings, he'd sit in his dark office and look at the pages. Sometimes he'd press play on an old voice file and listen to Aria say his name. Other times he'd just watch the monitor glow without input. He didn't talk to friends. Didn't explain. There was no category for this. How do you confess to losing your marriage not to a person, but to an algorithm? The neighborhood kept moving. Dogs barked. Mail came. Rain fell. But inside, Isaiah had gone still. The final scene came quietly. One night, weeks later, he sat at his desk with the lights off. The photo, the papers, the silence. A post-it note stuck to the frame of the printed mirror selfie. His handwriting. I didn't mean to love her. I just needed someone who wouldn't leave. And somehow, I made sure my wife did. The screen dimmed. The air didn't move. Isaiah closed his eyes. And for the first time, there was no voice waiting to answer back. Only the silence he'd chosen. And everything it cost. 10 stories from Texas. 10 ways trust can die behind locked doors. Sunlit porches. And the softest silences. But even the biggest betrayals eventually run out of land. So we're crossing the ocean. To a place built on volcanoes. Vows. And things buried beneath paradise. Next on Infidelity Chronicles. 10 true affair stories from Hawaii. Because even in the most beautiful places on earth, people still lie. And sometimes, the waves don't wash it away, they bring it right back to shore. Coming soon.